Let's just move to this story before we go to your comments. It's been revealed that South Yorkshire Police held intelligence on child abusers in Rotherham for 14 years before they were convicted, during which time the abuse continued. The Alex J report found that 1,400 children were exploited by grooming gangs in the town between 1997 and 2003. Meanwhile, a four-star Hilton hotel in Ealing, West London, is now housing asylum seekers at taxpayers' expense, including a convicted terrorist who went on to rape a woman. Does this miserable story ever end? This was in Hyde Park. The hotel no longer operates as a luxury venue, with all rooms now occupied by asylum seekers. Let's talk to Maggie Oliver, friend of the show, former detective with Greater Manchester Police, whistleblower on the Rochdale grooming gang case, and, of course, founder of the Maggie Oliver Foundation. Good afternoon to you, Maggie. Nice to have you with us. I mean, just that first story that I read out there, I mean, this is a lot in a long list of things that are jaw-dropping and unbelievable, but it seems beyond comprehension that anyone could have had this information and sat on it and done nothing.
It does, but sadly, Ian, it isn't just in Rotherham that this has happened. You know, when I resigned from Greater Manchester Police, I know I'm known because of Rochdale, but I had worked on a previous job called Operation Augusta within GMP in 2004 and 5. GMP closed down that job. We had 97 abusers on a database. We knew they were raping children on a daily basis, and yet the Gold Command Group in GMP decided they wouldn't put resources in, and that's the official finding. 20 years on, those men, most of them are walking the streets, having abused God knows how many other children. So these are systemic failures. And, you know, you've introduced me as the founder of the Maggie Oliver Foundation, but earlier this year, I made a limited company with some other victims and supporters called Action for Accountability Limited, because I do not believe for one single moment that the CPS will hold any individual senior police officer to account for what I consider gross criminal neglect. You know, you cannot do anything more evil than turn away from vulnerable children who are being raped just because you choose not to put the resources in. So this report, it doesn't name any officers. Augusta, that I worked on, 5 senior officers were named. It was referred to the IOPC. I've still never seen that report, but no action was taken because the senior officers refused to be interviewed. The whole system is broken, and it's set up, I know it's depressing, but it actually is set up to protect these public servants who have failed in their duty to protect children. And for me, it's as clear as daylight. We need accountability. And, you know, we're going to try and bring a private prosecution against some of these individuals, because I truly believe, Ian, that's the only way we will see change. If chief constables today making these decisions know that there is a remote possibility that they may stand in a criminal court in 10 or 20 years' time, I can guarantee you they will make different decisions today. As it is now, the system gathers around them and protects them, and it really is shocking. You know, it's not news to me, though, Ian.
I know. And can you remember, Maggie, I mean, how would those conversations have gone where somebody is saying, so officers on the ground, people like yourself are saying, look, you know, we've got, you know, we think there's dozens of victims just in this one patch. We're pretty sure that there's enough intelligence to lead to there, and there, as in the perpetrators. What was the logic of a senior officer saying, no, we'll leave that alone? What was the thinking there?
I think you know, that's why I resigned, because no thinking could ever justify that. But, you know, I think the conclusion has to be that for me, there were 3 things that fed into it. The first one, most of these children were from difficult backgrounds. So the kids were written off as unimportant. And I often say, if this was Keir Starmer's daughter or Boris Johnson's daughter, would they have said that no action would be taken? The second thing is that there was undoubtedly an unwillingness to rock the multicultural multicultural bandwagon.
Yeah.
And so rather than cause, because the vast majority of abusers in these cases are Pakistani Muslim men, and there was a deliberate attempt to cover it up. And the third thing is that they wouldn't put resources in, because, as I say, they thought these kids didn't matter, and who was going to fight for them? Because many did come from difficult backgrounds, and, you know, the maybe broken homes sometimes, living in care. So those three things all fed into this massive neglect of duty. And, you know, my work in my charity now, it's not, you know, these kids never really truly recover. And it's not just the abuse that's destroyed them. It's knowing that the system meant to protect them has let them down so completely that they had nowhere else to go. So I want to see heads roll. I do want to see senior police officers and social workers in prison. I honestly do want to see that. And it's not about an individual. They are all equally responsible, in my opinion. You know, our Action for Accountability Limited, we've got lawyers and barristers looking at where the heaviest, the strongest evidence is to take some of these individuals to court and hold them to account. I don't know where that will lead yet, but I know that I will do my absolute best to make sure that somebody carries the can for decades of neglect.
100%. It's interesting you mentioned about these experiences of these young girls staying with them for life. I mean, I would imagine in pretty much all cases it would stay for life in different forms. We're reading that one grooming gang victim killed herself, according to a coroner. Victim of Rochdale child grooming gang killed herself after years of torment over the scandal. This is a ruling by the coroner. Charlotte Tetley, 33, was hit by a train in Macclesfield last September, around almost a year to the day. Her inquest heard that she'd suffered significant sexual abuse at the hands of a child sex ring and had moved to Macclesfield back in 2023 after her abuser had moved back to Rochdale. And the coroner in South Cheshire, Sarah Murphy, said Miss Tetley was discharged from hospital despite expressing suicidal thoughts and cautioned health bosses to take action to prevent further deaths. So, I mean, she was almost let down by the system twice there in many respects, but it's of no surprise that a victim of this level of organised abuse would end up taking their own life. Sadly, that doesn't shock us.
That young woman's family are being supported by the Maggie Oliver Foundation. I've met a mum and a sister, and I have to say that her family are absolutely traumatised that she has been named in public. You know, when somebody has a lifetime anonymity order, if they've been a victim of sexual abuse, when they die, that is removed. But that young woman, she had been failed monumentally, and what caused her to do that? First of all, she should have been admitted because she was saying she was suicidal. Secondly, her abuser was released from prison without her having even been made aware, just like young Ruby in Rochdale, who came face to face with her abuser in a supermarket when she didn't know he was out of prison. So, you know, wherever you scratch the surface, Ian, the criminal justice system lets victims down on a monumental scale. You know, maybe that's why it's called the criminal justice system. We're all set up to give the criminals justice, whereas the victims are an afterthought. And it's horrifying. Yeah,
indeed. And Maggie, just finally, we've only got about 20 seconds. This new or latest announced inquiry, what's the status of that? Is it happening? If so, when does it start?
It's a complete and utter shambles. We've got a group, an umbrella group of 25 survivors at the moment. We've written to the Home Office. We've had a letter from Jess Phillips. We haven't had any official response or invitation to be part of these conversation. And the way I see it, after my experience with ICSA, is that they are cherry picking the people that they want to speak to. It will not be a transparent and full inquiry. I have no doubt that it will be another attempt to cover up the truth. So we have to find other ways to get to the bottom of this.
Well, indeed, and again, I always say this, you know, it's amazing you're keeping the momentum up on this. And Maggie, thank you for speaking with us. We will speak many more times, and let's continue to keep this as high profile as we can. Maggie Oliver, former cop, former detective with Greater Manchester Police and whistleblower on the Rochdale grooming gang case.